We're going to go ahead and now take a look at confidence intervals for means, meaning that we're going to estimate a population parameter using a lower limit, a lower bound, an upper bound, but this time the estimate is for a mean, a population mean, the mu. That's what we're looking for. And so we do what's called a one sample t interval in this case. We have one sample, and instead of a z, we're going to use something called the t distribution. In the past, we looked at normal distributions and the standard normal curve, and so we used the critical z for proportions. It's going to turn out that through some mathematical discovery and research that we're going to use something called the critical t value to help us construct the upper and lower. Again, for this class, we don't need to know the mathematics behind the t distribution, right? There's a little conversation here around in your notes here. Again, that would be for kind of those who are going to move on to advanced stats classes. For sure, you're going to want to dive into kind of the difference and why we use a t distribution. And again, it gets connected to the idea that we're not using the population standard deviation to calculate the standard error. We're going to be using the sample standard deviation. So that requires some adjustment for us to get estimates that are unbiased, right? That give us a way to estimate the population mean. So again, there's some language here that you want to at least be familiar with, but again, you're not necessarily tested on the t distribution, the ideas of degrees of freedom, the formula here, though you may see that in other online videos, people using calculations. But what we know is this here. We need to be aware of something called degrees of freedom, and that's the sample size -1. It's an adjustment that we use when looking for the critical t value, and you'll see a little notation, T29 or something like that. That little number represents the degrees of freedom, right? And again, that's a concept that we're not going to dive into in this class. When do we use the t distribution? We use it when we're looking at a standardized distribution of sample means, when we're looking at, again, the distribution of sample means, and when the population standard deviation is unknown, which is most cases in our research. And when we collect data, it's sample data, so we only have the sample standard deviation. Again, some of that may not make sense, but I'm hoping that you'll trust the system and know that we're going to be dealing with a t distribution for a one sample t interval calculation.